I should explain the lens I'm looking through before I recap the testimony and explain why I think that what the defense brought out actually goes to Fotis Dulos having committed the crime. In addition to having worked in criminal justice for more than 28 years, my specialty is threat assessment. So that training and experience informs the way I look at things. Hutch, the owner of The Pond, testified this morning. He knew Fotis, Jennifer, the children, and Michelle. He testified to having dinner with Michelle and Fotis and another couple on May 23rd. He said both Fotis and Michelle seemed normal. The defense asked if, even in hindsight, everything seemed normal. And the answer was yes. This is an important question. As we've discussed before on this channel, and as everybody knows, often some detail that you think nothing of at the time turns out to be important, but you don't know that until you look back on it with new information. And there are 3 arguments that come to mind as a result of this question. Hutch knew Fotis well and for a long time. And if Hutch didn't see that something was up, that Fotis was planning something, that something was wrong, well, then it's reasonable to think that Michelle wouldn't have seen it either. Especially considering that we know that Fotis had successfully hidden things from Michelle before. Now, one could argue that nothing abnormal means there was nothing going on or nothing about to happen. I would disagree with this argument in fact, but agree with it in respect to perception. That is, it doesn't mean that there was nothing going to happen or nothing going on, but it does go to the state of mind of the observers, those people in Fotis's orbit, that they would believe that there was nothing going on or nothing about to occur. And the third thing, we learned very early in this trial that Fotis was practiced at wearing a mask and was successful at hiding things from even those closest to him. This testimony from Hutch could reinforce that Fotis was good at masking. So good that even his close friend had no indication that something was about to happen. Hutch testified to Michelle's whereabouts on May 24th. He is one of the people who saw her that day. His testimony corroborates Michelle's statement. He says Michelle seemed normal, and they asked the question again, even in hindsight, did it seem normal? And Hutch said yes, it did. Police noted that when Michelle got mad about something, she talked a lot. We see Michelle in her interviews behaving in ways that are contrary to impression management, meaning she's not a big mask wearer. Hutch observed both Fotis and Michelle on the Sunday after Jennifer's disappearance. Michelle was stressed and upset and either didn't hide it or was unable to hide it. It was obvious to other people. Given the circumstances, it's completely understandable that Michelle would be feeling like this. I think it would be weird if she didn't feel stressed. Fotis, on the other hand, didn't seem overly upset in the circumstances. The source of upset for Fotis was that he didn't get his kids. As everybody knows, it's Fotis who had the relationship with Jennifer. Does anyone else find it weird that he wasn't worried about her, or at least worried about his kids and what they were going through? Note what Fotis was upset about. Not getting his way. Not getting his kids. That's it. He was upset about not getting what he wanted. It wasn't about the kids. He wasn't upset for the kids. He wasn't upset for Jennifer. He didn't get his way. He was upset for himself. Let's hop back for a minute to May 23rd and the testimony that adds to the proof that not only did Fotis kill Jennifer, but that he pre-planned it. Just a caveat here. I wouldn't take this one thing by itself as proof. There's plenty of other evidence. And hopefully, what I explain here will help someone out there protect themselves or somebody else. Hutch testified that on May 23rd, Fotis indicated he would be bringing the kids to the pond more. That Fotis seemed hopeful that things were finally going to move forward in a good way. Go back to the testimony of the Guardian and how he said that before Jennifer's disappearance, Jennifer and Fotis were communicating with more ease. Throughout the trial, both the prosecution and the defense went back and forth, each trying to show that either things were contentious or that they had become more cordial. I know that most people think that contentious means bad and cordial means good, or at least improving. I'm telling you two things. One, any change in behavior, even if it appears good, is worth noting and thinking about. Two, a sudden improvement is cause for alarm. Bear with me. What I'm saying here is evidence-based. There are specific stages to premeditated domestic homicide. The last stage before the actual commission of the act is resolution. The offender goes through a mental process, and there's a stressful time of contemplation when he's considering, thinking, and just trying to decide. At the point at which he decides he's going to follow through, there's a release of stress and often even a sense of optimism, and he begins to set things in motion. After a crime, or after a crime that was averted, you might hear things like, "It seemed so much better lately," or "He did my favorite activity with me and he never does that," or "He planned this really nice dinner for her the night before or the night of," or "He's always grouchy, but he's been in a pretty good mood for the last week," that kind of thing. It's because there's resolution. If you are in a relationship where you're concerned for your safety and things suddenly improve, especially if there's not an obvious reason for it, get out. I'm not talking about gradual improvements where the person has been working on something and working to change and you're seeing these incremental changes. That's a different thing. And if you see a sudden change, investigate it rather than shrugging it off or assuming you know the reason, even if the change appears positive. Over many months, Fotis displayed some behavioral changes that no one thought anything of. This sudden good relationship with Jennifer was a huge one. Please don't assume that because a sudden change appears to be good, that it means something good. I'm going to move on here and show you one more thing that happened with Hutch's testimony today. Hutch described the police coming to the pond and searching for Jennifer. Imagine thinking your property might be the place where someone you knew and liked would be found deceased. Hutch struggled to keep his composure on the stand. This was obviously painful and difficult. When asked about that, he said, "Yes, it was one of the most painful experiences of my life." Understandable, yes? Well, then the prosecution did this.
And how the police coming with, did you say they searched the pond one day and then they came back with a boat and divers? Did they do that? Okay. And that was the worst experience of your life? Them searching for...
It was an awful experience. Yes, awful experience searching. The whole thing's an awful experience.
Of course. You watching the pond being searched for a dead body of a mother of 5 was awful for you. We understand that.
Sustained.
I'm working on something else for you to show you how a witness for the prosecution inadvertently helped the defense. Trust your gut. See you in the comments.